Okay, so I'm just checking, guys, to see if I'm live. And it looks like I am, but I can't go live from my original feed, so I'll just jump over there and I'll get everyone to jump back because I'm using my iPad, not my laptop. Live chat. Sorry, guys. Flying to watching. And is it going to tell me who's watching? Hey, Sonia. Hey, Jason. Yes, sorry about that, guys. I should have used my laptop. The bloody iPad is a difficult thing when you set it for an event and you want to translate that event back to a live feed. There's probably a way on how to do that, but I don't know how to do that. But anyway, thanks for joining me. Carl's not going to be with us this evening because he's on some business. So yeah, you're on the other link. Sorry, buddy. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time here just talking to you about a couple of things that I've got here in the man cave. Like a lot of guitar players, I suppose we've picked up a few guitars and a few amplifiers over the years in that search for that tone that we want, or that tone that we're chasing, or that particular artist who's inspiring us. And I'm one of those guys. I buy guitars that my idols play. Does that make sense? For example, this here's a relatively inexpensive guitar. Hey Mitch, it's a classic vibe 60s. And the prices I'm going to give you here are going to be New Zealand prices, and I've relicked this. So this is a made in Japan guitar. I bought it new, and it was about $700. So relatively cheap, but one of the reasons why I bought it, obviously, is it had really great reviews on the internet. And I was looking for a guitar because I was inspired by, obviously, Stevie Ray Vaughan. And, you know, this guitar certainly does that. I relicked it too myself. I'm happy with the relic. But if you guys haven't played classic vibe guitars or seen them, I can recommend them. This is pretty good. It's a pretty good guitar. Hey Jimmy T, thanks for joining us. Hey Sonia, hey Jace, and Mitch, thank you. I am going to do something to this guitar this week. I'm going to replace that thin, what do you call that thing? Block, bridge, tremolo block. I'm going to replace that with a proper block, and the one I understand that I need to replace that with is a made in Mexico block, and apparently that's going to make a lot of difference to the sustain. Yeah, so Jason has the butterscotch tally. Well, so do I, Jace. So this is my 50s custom vibe Telecaster, and again I've relicked this. It's set up in permanent open G, so it doesn't have the bottom E string, and that's obviously set up because yeah, unfortunately it's left-handed. Yeah, I know, and it's if everyone is familiar with Ben's channel, he's had the same issue too with it being around the wrong way. But again, a great sounding guitar. Had no issues with it. And another long term project too is obviously to replace that front pickup with the PAF, just to make it look a little bit what's the word, authentic. But again, I agree with Jason. Jason's saying plays like butter. It was a big decision for me to set this up in permanent open G, because just a beautiful guitar, nice thin neck. Now that cops a lot of criticism apparently from a lot of players, but I've got small hands, so it doesn't bother me. And again, made in China, but very good. I had a 50s classic vibe as well, which is the two-tone one. Arvin Grant, hey Arvin, thank you for finding me. Yeah, normally this show that we do this evening, it's normally with Carl, and we normally talk about the Stones, and we've got a couple of shows to talk about some all-time favourite Stones riffs, but Carl's busy this evening, and I want to just keep up the habit of just doing a weekly show. So Jimmy T saying, can you talk about using Open G motivation? Well, clearly, Keith Richards. So, you know, when we were all guitar players, you're trying to play Honky Tonk Woman in standard tuning, just didn't work. And Brown Sugar, and you know, all these great songs all down the line, and also, you know, I was inspired by the Black Crowes, and you know, a lot of their songs, that first album is all in open G. So I've mentioned it a couple of times in some of the shows with Carl that when I decided to learn to play open G, it was an interesting situation because playing an open G forces you to slow down. You can't play ahead of yourself or ahead of the beat. You have to actually slow down. So you're... So yeah, I enjoyed that process of learning how to do that. And oh, really, the Black Crowes are cool. Yeah, they are. Yeah, Rich Robertson, outstanding guitarist. So again, one of the reasons why I bought this guitar, you know, relatively cheap compared to an American Telecaster, $2.5 grand, $3 grand, $3.5 grand here in New Zealand, and this one $700, so that was affordable. And interestingly enough, if you go on some forums and check out some other YouTube clips, a lot of people will say the Custom Vibes play just as good as the Made in Mexico's. I've never had a Made in Mexico Tele, so I don't know. I had a Made in American standard, and they sounded pretty close. So yeah, so that's the Custom Vibe. Another guitar I'd like to talk to you guys about. Thanks. Give Open G, yeah, give it a go. especially if you're a Stones nut. If you've been trying to nail Honky Tonk Woman, Brown Sugar, Start Me Up, these classic open G songs, if you've been trying to nail that in standard and you couldn't get it, you have to do it in open G. And there's lots of clips on here where people will show you how to do that. So on YouTube, I should say. So this is my second Casino. I bought, I had the natural one, but this one here is the John Lennon inspired Casino. You can see in reverse somewhere, you will see John Lennon's sketch. Yeah. So this one is again made in China, but with American P90s and wiring and switches. So was out of tune. Should have tuned it. Again, awesome guitar, made in China. You can spend a lot of money and get the Korean ones, or the elitists, the made in American one. But you know, a lot of money. So, but I'm happy with that. And plays well. Plays well acoustically. Yeah, good guitar. Love that. Right, the next guitar is my American Strat. And this is the guitar that I've had for a long, long time. So this guitar here I've had for 20 years. This guitar is 89 Strat, and that's not relicked at all. Hey Jim, I'm just running solo this evening. I don't have Carl with me. He's doing a business trip, so I'm just talking about some of the guitars I've got. So this one here, I put a, this is a Clapton scratch plate off an 89 signature Clapton Strat with the gold laser sensors. It has the mid boost and the TBX control on here as well. So and there somewhere is the 9-volt battery. Love this guitar. And you guitar players out there know exactly what I'm saying. It's just got your mojo. That's my #1 guitar. And in a show, I mentioned to Carl that I wouldn't put this in a case if I had to put it in my van. I wouldn't care if it got knocked around or scratched, because it's going to add some character to it, so I don't worry about that too much. But I got this one here, which is a Clapton Strat. Have you had to replace the lace sensors? No. So that guitar that I showed you, I put that pick guard on, installed that pick guard with those lace sensors about 2 or 3 years ago. I did that before I managed to get this one here, which is a Clapton Strat. So I got that because it was a good price. And if you're a Clapton nut like I am, the mid boost and that TBX control is the holy grail. That's the sauce that's going to give you that ingredient that you need. You know, I tried to get a lot of tones with different overdrive pedals and played through different amps, like all of us, you know, to try and get something that you thought was the tone that you were trying to find. But yeah, getting that the TBX control certainly helped solve that problem. And this has the V-neck, a soft V-neck. Some people don't like it. Again, I've got small hands, so it doesn't worry me. And Clapton's a little fellow, so obviously it doesn't worry him. Yeah, beautiful guitar. So the next one I want to talk about is my Lemon Drop. So this is inspired by Peter Green, and it's what they call the vintage brand, and it has an out of phase circuit. Now I don't know how well this is going to come through, but it's on, both pickups are on 10, and that's when the out of phase tone, the nasally tone, comes in, and I don't know how that's going to sound on here. Let's have a look. But when you turn one of the volumes down on one of the pickups, beautiful guitar, I love it. Again, inexpensive guitar, good sound coming through my headphones. Thanks. We can talk about probably why there's a good sound later. 800 bucks for this guitar. Relict. I bought it relict. So you can see we've sanded the back there. Yeah, that already had some relicing on there, but I'm one of the guys that like to sand the back, the back of the neck. Yeah. How much are vintage guitars? $8.99, 800 bucks New Zealand. I'm on a Peter Green, couple of Peter Green Facebook groups, and it's interesting because the discussion always crops up about guitars and how to get that Peter Green sound. And there's a lot of guys on there. Obviously you've got Les Pauls, there's a lot of pickups that you can buy up there that will give you that out of phase tone, and that's great. And there's always guys like me that'll jump on there and say, well look, you know, for 800 bucks or 900 bucks, you know, or 600 bucks, you can pick up a relatively inexpensive guitar and get that British blues tone. So that's not bad. The next one is made in Japan, Wolfgang. Two blackies, sweet, yeah. yeah, so this is a made in Japan Wolfgang. Put these 5150 decals on myself. Now, I'm guilty of a couple of things. I haven't got a brass block in here. Eventually I'll get around to doing it. If you watch the Johnny Bean show, all the guys that have put a brass block on will tell you clearly it makes a difference. But yeah, this is a good guitar. Again, it's got that nice compressed neck that I like. Took me a while to work out how to set this up. I had no experience at all with Floyd Roses at all. So I obviously jumped on YouTube, spoke to a couple of people about what I could do, and yeah, fiddled around with it, and I've got it playing pretty well. And you can see there too, we've put these eyes on. Can you see that? Cheers, Jace. Cool guitar. Yeah, it is. And this one. So that's the, what do they call this? The Stripe Series 5150. And I'll just bring the chat back up. Hold on, guys. So again, guitars, aren't they interesting? They're never the same. This guitar has a quite a wide neck. The wide, it's quite a bit wider. Again, we've put these things on. What do they call them? Snap bite hooks. Yeah, the EVH Holy Grail. Well, I'm going to tell you something, Sonia. As much as I've always wanted this guitar, and I'm not a guitar builder, so I was never going to be like Steve Anderson and build one. You know, we always wanted this guitar. My Wolfgang sounds better. This pickup on here, it's a bit, it's a sharp tone. It's a bit sharp, and I've spoken to Dave Nesdell about it in the chat on a couple of Johnny Bean shows, and he's sort of suggested maybe just changing the pickup. So yeah, I might have to do that. But again, I'm guilty of having no brass block. So certainly something for me to do in the future. And again, you know, people say it makes a big difference to the tone. And I'll get a Kramer sticker. Apparently you can buy Kramer stickers on there, so again, that's another task to do. I've got to tell you something too. These leather EVH straps are rubbish. They're crap. They're not leather, they're plastic. Don't buy them. If you're going to buy one, buy the nylon strap. Caleb Rappaport, the Nerd Hailing guitarist, he's got the nylon ones, and they're much better, and they're cheaper. You know, these things are just junk. So and the last guitar we can talk about this evening is my bass guitar. always wanted a bass. Always wanted a bass, and got this made in Mexico Jazz about 6 months ago, and I really enjoy learning to play the bass. Like a lot of things that we do as guitar players, we never stop learning, and when I picked up the bass and played some tunes that I'd been playing with a couple of guys with my guitar for years, and then having to play it with a bass was just yeah, an eye-opener. I changed the guitar strings, the bass strings on here to what they call flat wounds, and I went to see a mate of mine who had a couple of basses, and I picked up his bass and played it, and it just felt beautiful. And I said to him, "What's going on? You know, it just feels so smooth." And he said, "Oh, it's flat wound strings, as opposed to the round strings." I could be getting that wrong. I don't know what the technical term is, but anyway, these are smooth. They give a duller tone, apparently. I'm not a great bass player, so I can't really tell, and I'm half deaf anyway, but for me, it's not necessarily how a guitar sounds, it's always about how it feels too, and having a bass with these smooth strings certainly was an appeal. Okay, how do you like the eye hooks, Jace? I don't know. You know, my number one Strat has these things on it. You know, I don't know what they are. And you're never going to lose that. I put those hooks on because I was influenced obviously by the guys in the Johnny Bean show. It adds a bit of authenticity. They say it scratched the guitar. Oh look, I don't care. Yeah, mate, I think they just make, more than anything, probably just more noise than anything else. I did something a bit different though. I've put a washer on there, and I've got a small washer on the front. As opposed to just screwing the eye hooks in. Gotcha, smart move, yeah. And you know, if it gets scratched, well, I'm not really that concerned about it, to be fair. But getting the pickup changed, that's certainly the next job on this. Whether I get the 59 or the 78 or the American made Wolfie. Apparently the American made Wolfgang pickups are a lot smoother than the made in Mexico ones. Hey Sean, how's it going? Mitch, my Ibanez has the Ibanez Edge locking tremolo. I don't know anything about Ibanez guitars. So Sean, I'm just flying solo tonight because Carl's on a business trip, so I just wanted to get into the habit of keeping the same time slot for the program. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Home tones. Now I'm not going to offer any sound examples other than just a conversation. You guys might remember, I think Amplitude had the black plug-it thing, the first generation that came out. I remember getting one of those. I don't know, a few years ago, and plugging that into an iPad and using the app and playing it through headphones, and that was interesting. I spent most of my time fiddling around rather than playing, because you've got all these different amp selections. But there was a problem with the latency. You know, it just didn't sound that good, so I threw it away. And then a couple of years ago I bought this thing here, which was what they call a Sonic Port Line 7 thing. So you plug that into the end of your Apple device, and again you plug it, your headphones in, and you can use all these apps, Amplitude, Line 7, GarageBand. There's a crap load of apps on there that simulate amps. And again, I spent most of my time fiddling around trying to get something that sounded good instead of playing the guitar. I bought one of those little Jamvox plugs as well, and that was pretty good. There's a couple of different versions. The one that I bought was the one that was based on the AC30. Takes a couple of AAA batteries, and you plug that into your guitar. I don't have that here because it's at work. But that was good. That sounded pretty good. Then I got this thing, which is what they call the Jamvox, and you plug that in to your computer, and it takes your guitar in and also a mic, and you've got all these different amp simulations, and you can swap settings with other people, you know, so that was pretty good too. But I went to a friend's place, and he had this little amp, and it was a Yamaha THR10, and I played through it, and it was just phenomenal, the sound that was coming out of this little thing. So I'll show you here what I've got. So just bear with me, guys. I can't tilt. Hopefully you can see. Hopefully you guys can see. So this is my man cave set up there. So I've got the THR10, and here I've got the THR10X, which is the high gain version of that. But lately what I've been doing is I've been running that through the clean channel using the EVH 5150 overdrive. Normally I would run this pedal through my Vibrolux, but you know, playing your Vibrolux at home, it's a bit difficult sometimes, because you got to crank it up a little bit. And to play my bass, I've got this little, what they call a Trace Elliott Alf. So there's it's a little amp there, and with a little single 10-inch speaker, and that sounds pretty good. You can buy another 10-inch speaker and another cabinet, but again, that's good for home use. So I'll just get the chat back up. Sorry for high-tech production. That's my amp. Yeah. So yeah, Mitch and I have spoken about that. Go to Mitch's channel and check it out, because Mitch has got a few clips uploaded on his channel on that and also I think it's Katana. But I can't rate these Yamaha amps high enough. There's plenty of videos out there that people will go through and show you some settings. There's a young guy called Cameron Cooper who's got some settings for some Van Halen tones. Look, I followed his settings. They didn't work for me. I had to fiddle around and cut some mids out and put on some treble. Yeah, Mitch has been using his Katana for, yeah. So check out Mitch's channel, guys. It's pretty good. He's got some nice clips there, and he's getting some juicy tones with that Katana. And the good thing about that amp is that you can program that with a computer. Again, you know, it's like, and you can do the same thing too with these Yamahas. There's an editor available, and you can go on and you can share. You can share some file settings with other people. You just submit. Yeah, good. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, check him out. He's Mitch. How's your eruption lessons going? You still you're progressing? Yeah, Jimmy. I can tell you the sound quality is amazing. So what you can do too with these Yamahas is that you can, you know, plug your iPhone through and you can play your music while you're playing or jamming. It's in stereo as well, which is brilliant. And you can also use this as an interface. You can record through this onto your computer, and you can add, because it's got effects like a chorus effect, you can add an effect afterwards. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's a bit of my gear. I've got a couple of acoustic guitars and a resonator as well, but we'll save them for another show. Got some of the tapping down now. I've been working on Cliffs of Dover of late. Just can't play it fast enough. Yeah, I have that problem too. I've been trying to learn Black and Blue, and yeah, it's a difficult and yeah, I just I'm a tone chaser like a lot of people, and getting a guitar that represents the music that you want to play certainly helps. I had this conversation with a lot of people, and I'm not an expert. You know, I've played in a few bands and I've been playing for a few years, but all my guitars sound different. I can plug all these guitars into the same amp and they'll all sound different. So it amazes me how people would say, for example, that Eric Clapton will sound good on a $150 guitar playing through a $150 amp. I think he'd struggle. You know, people say that tone is in your hands. Yeah, of course it is. But if tone is in my hands, why do all my guitars sound different? Hey Scott, I'm just on tonight. Normally Carl would be on here and we'd be talking about the Stones. So Carl's at a business meeting, so he's not available this evening. So I've decided to just show off a few guitars and talk about a couple of amps that I've got here in my man cave. Normally I would play through my Vibrolux, and to get a good tone with the Vibrolux you've got to turn it up a bit. But the good thing with these Yamahas is that when you turn the sound down, the volume down, it still maintains that the sound. It's amazing. I heard people talking about that before I played them, but then you've got to get them home and play it and turn it down and up to realise exactly what they're talking about. So if there's one thing that I can recommend to a home guitar player who wants a good amp, get these Yamahas. I use my katana with my heads. Yeah, look, I'm half deaf, and I've tried. I can't. Yeah, I can't listen to a headset. I can't. I have to have some distance between my ears and the amp. Does that make sense? I'm more than half deaf. Yeah. It's those hi-hats standing next to those bloody drummers, bashing those hi-hats. So, yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for jumping in and saying g'day. Carl and I really appreciate the support that you guys give us with the Stones show. Fender amps seem out. Yeah, they are. This is... That's my... At the moment, I've got my jeans on it. But that's, can you see? Yeah. That's my Fender Vibrolux. And that's the amp that I gig with. And because first and foremost, I'm a blues player. I just normally play through that amp. Or if I need some overdrive, I just normally use that pedal there, an OCD. So I'm pretty simple, and a Boss DD7 delay. You know, I've got this huge, what do you call them? Thing that you, what do you call them? You put them at your feet and you put your pedals on. What do you call those things? Pedal board. Okay, and you know, pedals, like a lot of us, you know, we buy pedals because we pedal board. That's it. Yeah. So you know, we buy these pedals because, you know, we want to get the tone. We want to get this tone, and they do have an important role to play. But I try and keep it simple, and I think that's because I've been influenced lately by playing bass. You know, bass players just normally plug their bloody bass into an amp and away they go, don't they? You pedal. Yeah. So, and again, I got, yeah, well, you know, I've thought about getting an attenuator. Yeah, I thought about that quite a few times. About getting an attenuator. That's certainly something I need to check out. I thought that video is backwards when you're live streaming. Yeah, look, normally I would be using my laptop, but at the moment, Mitch, I'm using my iPad. So, am I backward? Are we backwards? Is that backwards? Because I know that Ben Coombs has been having issues on his channel for ages with being backwards. So normally that wouldn't be an issue. Yeah, bizarre, isn't it? Bizarre that they haven't fixed it. I don't know why. Yeah, strange. But yeah, that's one of my main reasons for doing this show with Carl, is because You know, we're influenced by British blues, the Stones, Clapton. You know, I'm a Beatles nut as well. Check out Phil McKnight video if you haven't. He recommends the volume pedal instead. Good. Yeah. Good heads up. I might check that out. It works well for the Fender, but not the Marshall, which has a 50 watt. But it does. Yeah. You know. I just about was going to buy one of those Blues Breaker reissues a year ago. I still want one. One day. But that's who I'm inspired by. You know, Peter Green, Clapton, Keith Richards, Robin Trower. Those guys are just killers. And then, you know, like a lot of us, we met on the Johnny Bean show. We had our socks blown away by Eddie Van Halen. You know, when we heard, probably for a lot of guitar players, Eruption. I remember hearing that when I was 14 years old, thinking, what is this? Yeah, but you know, guitars and amps, you know, we can spend a fortune or we can buy wisely and we can get some good gear. And I think if you'd given me my Fender amp and a Clapton Strat, I probably wouldn't have appreciated the tone, because I hadn't gone through this journey of buying a Vox Valvetronic amp and this other Essex amp and all these, you know, cheap things that we thought were going to be great because they're cheap, and they actually turn out to be rubbish. There is some benefit in buying something that's got a name, that has some good reviews, because it is at least going to sound half pie good, half decent. But it's all up to the individual, isn't it? You know, what sounds good for somebody. I've had this discussion with a lot of guitar players over the years. You know, I had an AC-15 and I had a Tweed Blues Junior at the same time, and the AC-15 was just a better amp than the Blues Junior. I'd never buy another Blues Junior, but I've got two guys that I gig with who love their Blues Junior amps. So even 10 watt Silvertones, they can crank it. See, and at the moment, you know, I'm playing that and it's not even halfway. It's probably at 10 o'clock, the volume on the lead channel. So you can hear that nasally sound? Is that coming through? Andrew, I don't know if you know who Chelsea Constable is. She's a young guitarist out of Nashville. She's mostly country rock, but she has a killer Eruption tutorial. She was on EVH Gear last night. I certainly know who she is. And she is a very good guitarist, and I love her accent. That southern accent, it's amazing. Hey Simon, I'm just wasting a bit of time here because Carl can't make the show tonight. He's got some business commitments, so I've just gone through and shown a couple of guitars off and spoken about my my Yamaha amps, how I get my tone here in my man cave without blasting the walls down with my Fender. Yes, it can get loud, but it's nothing like the 100-watt Fender. Yeah, yeah, Fenders are so this is my favorite guitar at the moment. This is my favorite guitar. You know, this Lemon Drop. How's it going, Simon? I see the football season started. Are you a football fan? I support Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, Simon. This is the vintage Lemon Drop, and unfortunately, I'm back to front. But this is the vintage Lemon Drop that's modelled on Peter Green's Les Paul. Stepping out. Love it. Does it hit? No. So this, Simon, comes wired with the out of phase sound tone, and you get that out of phase tone by turning both the pickups up to 10. So I don't know if this is going to come through on this iPad, but that's the nasally tone. And then to get out of that nasally tone, you just turn down one of the pickups. So what's playing now is the neck pickup. And then you turn the neck pickup down and it'll be the bridge pickup. Don't know if it's coming through, but that's, and you just keep the selector in the middle position. That's how that works. They're about $600 here in the States. Might have to grab one. Well, I can firmly recommend it. If you're after that British blues tone, Jason, and you don't want to spend a fortune, but get really, really good, I'll send you a couple of links to a couple of guys on some YouTube clips that I know, and there's a couple of guys on a Facebook group, Peter Green Facebook group, that's got a outstanding review on these guitars if you want to check it out. No, don't need to rewire it, no. But a lot of guys do, Simon, as you know. A lot of guys do. A lot of guys will go out there and they'll buy a Les Paul, which is great, and they'll buy the Peter Green, where there's about 3 or 4 different makers making these pickups, and they'll wire it up, and that's their Peter Green guitar. But like a lot of things, it comes down to money and what you're willing to pay. So if you guys don't know, Simon is going to be on live with Carl and I in the next couple of weeks, and we're looking forward to that show because Simon is a British blues nut, a Stones nut, He's a guitar player, plays in bands, and there's a lot of questions we want to ask him about what he's gone through, what he's done, and his impressions on British blues over the years. So we'll be looking forward to that. Jason, mate, it's always good to see you from North Carolina. Appreciate you popping in. Jimmy T, thank you for the kind words and the support that you've given Carl and I. Sonia, it's always a pleasure to see you too. Again, the kind words and the support that you give Carl and I. We're just interested in talking about things that we want to talk about with people who want to participate and enjoy what we talk about. Mitch, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. And Scott, thanks for the heads up on a couple of things there earlier. Like a lot of people who love music, you know, we can see the power in music, and we know what music means to us as individuals. And I suppose that's the good thing about hanging out with guys like you and joining the Johnny Bean show and joining Ben's show and watching Ben's show from work, is the positive things that people say. I'm always going to talk about that. I'm always going to mention that in any YouTube clip we upload, because I'll go and check out some cat playing something, and he's giving a version of something of how he plays it, and somebody's always going to chime in and say, that's not how you do it, and then throw in a swear word, you know. And I just think, why? You know? Yeah, you know, we all have our opinions, and that's great, but why would you go out of your way and call someone a name because they've uploaded a clip or they've given an opinion on some gear, and you swear at them? The recent Stones chat was good. Yeah. So Carl and I are going to go live on Wednesday. That's Wednesday, New Zealand time. So, and yeah, without Carl being on the show, well, we wouldn't have a show, because Carl is a Stones nut. Carl lit my fire with the Stones when I began a friendship with him. I thought I was a Stones nut, and I thought I knew my blues. But when I met this cat, and he just questioned a lot of things that I thought I knew. And you might listen to something for 20 years or 10 years, and then you have a conversation about it, this album or a song, and then you go back and listen to it again because you've had this conversation. It's like listening to it again. I don't have any ultra heavy guitars. I haven't seen barely any trolls on guitar channels. Well, that's good, Jimmy T, because yeah, I've seen a few. Sleep well. Well, thanks for sharing your gear with us. Thanks, Jace. Take it easy, man. Yeah, I have. And you know, Carl and I have sort of said it before. You know, musicians have a responsibility to use social media in a positive way, and if that influences people to think about what they're going to say. Carl is in New Zealand? Yeah. Carl is in New Zealand. So Carl is the internationalist of the show. Carl spent 15 years in North America. He worked in Cleveland, spent a lot of time in Texas. Yeah, he's a great guitar player. Carl's a very modest guy too. He won't say, he won't blow his own trumpet. And we like to think that's a Kiwi trait, but I know quite a few Kiwis who do like to blow their trumpet, but Carl doesn't. He's very modest. but his knowledge on Stones and British blues, and indeed Chicago blues, it's phenomenal. I'm very happy and proud to call him a good friend of mine. So thanks for hanging out with me, everyone. If you want to join Carl and I on Wednesday, that'll be cool. If not, we'll be on the same time next Sunday. Yeah, Mitch, I'm glad you could too. And like I've said to you before in Johnny Ben's Discord, I'm sure I've mentioned it to you. And I know that you've jumped on Ben's show a few times. If you want to jump on, I'd love to offer that invitation to anybody in the chat. Sonia, Arvin, Jimmy T. If you guys want to jump on at any time, just message me, and we can jump on and talk about the Stones, guitars, or music. Easy. Alright guys, I'm going to see if I can end this feed. Maybe next week. Yeah. Yeah, Mitch. Yeah, and Sonia, yeah, obviously, and the invitation's open. Yeah, just message. Greatly appreciate that. No problem. Okay, so how do I... Hold on. I normally use a computer, guys. I'm using an iPad. So the iPad's going to tell me somewhere, do I want to cancel this live stream? Yes, I do. Thanks a lot, everyone. Peace and love from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you.